Hey guys, welcome back to Genealogy and Chronology. If you like to learn about genealogies of people and characters with a bit of history, consider subscribing. Last month we discussed about the chieftains of Dunedain and how their descendants ultimately became the High Kings of the United Kingdom after many perils and struggles. Today, we will be discussing about the royal house of Arnor and Arthedain, which is the family of High King Isildur. And from his line, all the future kings of Northern Kingdom and the chieftains of Dunedain would be born. After the fall of Numenor, when Elendil and his sons Isildur and Anarion came to Middle-earth, there was already a sizable population of Numenorians living in Middle-earth because the former kings of Numenor were ruling many parts of Middle-earth, either directly or as vassal states. The people living in Middle-earth accepted the lordship of newly exiled nobility from Numenor, and thus Elendil and his sons would establish the new kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor. Elendil would become the High King of both Arnor and Gondor, but he would mostly rule the Northern Kingdom, while his sons looked after the affairs of Gondor. The brothers would jointly rule Gondor from the city of Osgiliath, while Isildur resided in Minas Ithil, later known as Minas Morgul, Anarion would reside in Minas Anor, later known as Minas Tirith. Soon Sauron would rise again in power with the One Ring and start his assaults on Gondor. Thus began the War of the Last Alliance, where the united forces of men and elves would battle Sauron. Anarion would be the first to die in this battle after getting hit with a stone cast from Barad-dûr. The responsibility of ruling Gondor alone would briefly fall on Isildur. Elendil would be slain by Sauron in the battle the next year, and thus Isildur for a time became High King of both Arnor and Gondor with an even larger responsibility. But Isildur and his three sons would be ambushed and slain by orcs in the disaster of Gladden Field. Within 4 years, Gondor and Arnor would lose its finest men, including Elendil, Isildur and his three sons and his brother Anarion. Hence, the throne of Arnor would pass on to Valandil, youngest son of Isildur, and he would also receive the title of High King. Even though Valandil was rightful heir to both the realms of Arnor and Gondor, he would not put forward any claims for the kingship of Gondor against his cousin Menedil. It is also important to note that Isildur in his life had entrusted his nephew Menedil with the affairs of Gondor. Thus Menedil, son of Anarion, would become king of Gondor, and both kingdoms would largely fend for themselves from here on until many centuries. Valandil would be the longest ruling Numenorian king in the history of Middle-earth. His rule and the rule of couple of generations following him would be largely peaceful. Arnor would prosper for nearly 8 centuries before its downfall began. Thus we get a total of 10 High Kings of Arnor, of which Eärendil would be the last, and there would be no king to hold the title of High King for another 2200 years. Eärendil had 3 sons, and they fought among themselves for the crown of Arnor. Thus the kingdom would be split into 3 parts: Arthedain, Cardolan and Rhudaur. Arthedain was ruled by Amleth, eldest son of Eärendil, and his kingdom was the only one to preserve the line of Isildur. Rhudaur would be annexed by Angmar by 1409 of Third Age, whereas Cardolan would be abandoned by 1636 of Third Age. Arthedain would slowly diminish in its glory, and despite being the senior house of Elendil, the Northern Kingdom would never match the glory of its junior counterpart from south. Seeing the diminishing population of Northern Kingdom, Argeleb II, 10th king of Arthedain, would give Shire, which was the royal hunting estate of kings, to the hobbits in 1601 of Third Age. Hobbits would inhabit the area under the king's protection, and for a time would also assist Arthedain in keeping the enemy at bay. By the time of Arafanth, 14th king of Arthedain, the kingdom was again under attack by Angmar. It was at this time that both the kings of North and South would seek each other's counsel, and this renewed friendship would lead to Ondahur, king of Gondor, giving his daughter's hand to Arvedul, son of king of Arthedain. And fate would be that Arvedul would be the last king of Northern Kingdom until King Elazar. This marriage would reunite the house of Elendil, and all the heirs that come after would have the blood of both Arnorian and Gondorian royalty. Arvedul would be killed in the snows of North while fighting against the enemy. Though Gondor sent assistance in the war against Angmar, the help came too late. Seeking revenge, Eärnur, Prince of Gondor and future king, would try to combat the Witch King, but his steed would not stand the darkness of the Witch King. We will discuss more about that encounter in coming weeks along with Royal House of Gondor. The son of Arvedu would be the first of the chieftains about whom we discussed last month. There would be a total of 16 chieftains, the last of whom would be Aragon II, who would become High King of the United Kingdom. I hope you all liked this brief overview of the royal house of Arnor and Arthedain. Be sure to follow along as we will be discussing about Royal House of Gondor on the 4th Sunday of this month.